leaders are supposed to be team players. Al, when you hear that we're supposed to be team players, what comes to mind?
Man, I think the first thing that comes to mind is that you should work well with others, whether it's horizontal or vertical.
Good day, folks. Good day, good day. Grandison Shines here with Seduire International, and thank you very much for joining us on another mastermind discussion. And today we're going to talk about the leadership roles, or I should say we're going to continue our conversation on leadership roles. But before we dive into that, of course, I have my two cohorts here, my two favorite cohorts. On my left side, Miss.
Yeah, I was going to say, what happened to favorite? I'm Yasmin Murray with Seduire International.
Yasmin Murray, and on my right side I have
Al Gleason, the curator of nonsense.
Curator of nonsense. I love that. Awesome. All right, folks. So, second video, part number 2 of a 4-part series. We have a 12-part section that we'll be talking about leadership roles. When we talk about leadership, it is a very, very vast topic, and we're going to be diving deep into a few of them today. The first 3, though, that we spoke about in the last video, if you haven't watched it, go back, and it's all about the first 3, right? Okay, all right. And so what were the first 3, Yasmin? Remind us that.
The very first one is that leaders are good learners.
Leaders are learners.
They are great visionaries.
Visionaries, and finally.
And good communicators.
Good communicators. We are supposed to be good communicators. In fact, that is one of the big differentiators that separates us from the common folk, I should say. No, I'm listening.
The rest.
The rest. There you go. There, common folk, rest. All right. Yes, labor. All right. Here we go. Exactly. We're gonna be politically correct here. All right. So today, the next 3, Yasmin, that we're gonna talk about are.
Have to be a team player.
Team player, right? Got to be team player. What's the second one we're gonna talk about?
Team builder.
Team builder. Leaders are also team builders, and finally.
Motivators.
Motivators. All right, so let's dive into the content. All right, so leaders are supposed to be team players. Al, when you hear that we're supposed to be team players, what comes to mind?
Man, I think the first thing that comes to mind is that you should work well with others, whether it's horizontal or vertical.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think in my experience, sometimes leaders, especially when we're talking about vertical, managing down to their team,
sure.
They feel like they are supposed to do it, and they don't necessarily include themselves as a part of that team.
Good point.
And so I think it's important to work well with others.
Yep.
You recognize that you are a part of your team, whether it is cohorts or subordinates.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you say about that? Leaders supposed to be team builders.
No,
yeah
players.
Excuse me, team players.
Yeah,
nay.
We will build them in a little bit. Of course, absolutely.
Okay.
And the issue happens when, like Al said, if you are the head of a team, you've got to make sure that you are part of the team. But the problem happens when you're part of a bigger team, like say for instance, you've got 4 or 5 different teams, and now horizontally you've got to make sure that you are getting along and playing good with them as well. That's where most of my issues have been. Co-workers who are competitive and will stab you in the back.
Uh-oh.
Stealing your ideas, wanting to look good. And I gave an example last time, and I'll give it in a little bit, but to me, that's even just as important horizontally, of course vertically up and down, but horizontally, if you're part of a bigger team, to jump in when the team needs you, if another team needs you, to be a good team player.
Absolutely. We're supposed to be good team players. In fact, there's a prerequisite of being a leader, because before you became a leader, most likely were a follower, so therefore you understand how to work with people that are on the same level as you. So when you start getting into the management levels, the leadership roles, same thing. Different departments, we report to a superior, or you probably support to a superior person, and then you have colleagues and other people that you should be working with on the horizontal level. All that saying is what we're supposed to be doing as leaders. Remember, team players, not just team isolators, and sometimes we do feel isolated. I know that's true for me. Sometimes I felt like I was alone. I'm managing my group of people, my division, and it was sometimes chaotic. But then understanding that when we go into the meetings, I have other people who have as much like experiences as I do, got to monitor my temperature, everything else. So being team players is extremely important. You want to add on to that?
No, I think it's important to just to be mindful of that role at all times, at both ways.
Yeah,
because it's easy to get caught up in one or the other.
Absolutely.
And neglect the other.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how do you solve a problem when you have people who are, like I just talked about, cliques form?
Oh, yeah.
And
that's very true.
Right.
Yep.
And then sometimes some of the cliques are detrimental to the bigger team. So we have an organization, then we have teams, and then we have individuals. So at the team level, how do you keep everyone connected as a leader?
Well, from my standpoint, it's imperative to make sure that those cliques don't form. Now, by socializing with others, we have an affinity with others, that has the tendency to do so. So it's incumbent upon, from my perspective, what I had to do, the leader of the superior of that group, to understand when people start being cliquish and to make sure that they are including people. Right now, DEI is huge, diversity, equity, inclusion. And so including people and are giving the people the feeling, one, that we're treating them with equality, first of all, and then that we are also including them in our conversations, even some of the lunchings, if you go to lunch, making sure you feel inclusive that way, making sure other people feel inclusive that way. Even though they may not say anything, it's still there top of mind for them that, hey, these people over here are being cliquish, I'm gonna stay away from them. When they start communicating the wrong way and spreading rumors and all that, you got to really, really watch all that. What do you say?
Right. I agree. I think you do the things that you can as a leader to eliminate that. Obviously, you mentioned you're going to have certain affinity with certain groups, for several different reasons. It could be a number of different reasons. But when you do have group activities, you make sure that the team is mixed.
Sure. Or
you make sure that you're communicating the same message to everybody, so certain groups don't feel like they have preferential treatment or others feel like they're neglected. So I think you have to be mindful of that to make sure the team is as integrated as possible, because those groups will form.
Right. Yeah.
I feel like clique is a stronger word, right? So it could be a group in your affinity, but by the time it's a clique, like it's gotten out of hand, man.
Yeah, exactly.
So
that's true.
You want to make sure you're doing those things to intervene in the meantime and make it as even and as fluid, everybody together as possible.
Yes.
Well, another question. When that toxic person, you said clique is too strong a word, but cliques do happen, forms that kind of team as a peer, would you go and tell your boss, hey, so-and-so, because bosses, when they get to a certain level, it seems like they're not connected, and that's one of the part of being a leader. You should always be connected with your team. As a peer, would you go directly to that individual who's being toxic? And if that doesn't suffice, do you go tattletale?
Well, that's a one that you're gonna have to really balance out. I'm not the tattletale person. I will address it with the people first if it came to that level. Now, in my younger management years, part of me didn't care because there were a bit cliquish in some of them, but they respected me because I wouldn't say made them respect me, but I showed myself worthy of respect as a leader. So they couldn't deny me my wisdom, my insight, knowledge on what I was doing, because the numbers were there, I had the people were there, we had camaraderie, so they couldn't deny that. So they respected me, but I still saw the clickers. I didn't say anything though, I just kind of let it be and stood my politically correct ground.
But as a team, you are responsible. You should hold yourself accountable. If you have peers that are toxic,
if they're toxic,
that's my question. What will you do? What should you do as a peer? Go ahead, Al.
No, I was gonna say, I think, Grandison, you said you would address them directly, right? You
Yes, I would address them, absolutely.
Type person.
Yeah, exactly. I would address them directly.
And I want to make sure it's clear what I was saying. I was saying when it becomes a clique, it's gotten out of control. Cliques do happen.
Which is true. Yeah, absolutely.
It doesn't have the intervention.
Yes.
But I think if you're talking about subordinates, I think you do have to address them directly. But I think that's always the right thing to do. I think majority of the time. Maybe there's some extreme cases, but I think it's one of these. It's a nuanced thing. It's a contextual thing, depending on whether you should go, solicit some other help. So if there's a problem, you approach that person, and that's not working. But this clique situation, separate groups start to create problems, then I think you need to escalate it.
Right.
But I think it, again, nuance, context, you have to consider those things, right? You have to have savvy. We talk about some of our modalities. All these things are in play at all times. But I think you do have to be mindful of the situation. And when it starts to interfere with your productivity, with you achieving your goals, if you can't handle it on your own, I think you need to reach out and get help.
And that was my issue. What I was talking about is that it didn't come to that with me at that moment in time. Could it have gone there? Probably, but it didn't go there. They still acknowledged me. They still included me, but I could tell that they were a bit cliquish. They would have their private meetings, and that's fine. And we ran different divisions, so maybe they're discussing something that I wasn't privy to. However, it never became toxic towards me to that degree where I had to solicit other help. I did confront a manager one time with the way he was talking to me, and I was like, "Oh, hey, hold on, we're going to have a discussion about how we don't talk like that to each other, right?" And so I stepped in. I didn't let it happen. I had nipped it in the bud right then and there. So my mom said, "Nip it in the bud." So I nipped it in the bud right then and there, and then it became a much more fluid conversation, like you were talking about. But until I addressed it, and what most people won't do, because some people don't like conflict, and I didn't have it. I didn't execute the words out of my mouth in a conflictual manner. It was more, hey, stern and assertive, just to make sure that we can continue to respect each other.
Well, I gave this example last time, but I'm going to give it again. So, situation was, especially like you said, there are people who, with diversity and all that. In a man's world, out of the 10
James Brown, this is a man's world.
Yes. 10 individuals on a team, I was the only female, and of course being female and of color in a white, I hate to say this, but white supremacy does come up. But I'm going to be politically correct. Amongst white male, somehow, people will, there are cliques. Cliques do happen. They will undermine what you say. There are people who don't think you are an equal, regardless of how many degrees or experience you have. So in this situation where this occurred, I did take it to my boss, because this individual always, every time there was team meetings, group meetings, always wanted to be the best and the supreme being, though his numbers were not there. So this one meeting, I had it. I had already told my boss. He said, hash it out, work it out, you're grown people. This one meeting, it all came to a head. And he said something, and I just dropped everything. I said, it's got to end right here. We have our peers here. Let them decide, and I'm not going to put everyone in the spot. I told the boss, I said, boss, if you don't mind, can we handle this on our own? He says, take 10 minutes, I'll be back. In that 10 minutes, I not only addressed the issue to his face in front of my peers, because they needed to know what was going on, and the things that he was doing behind the scenes and backstabbing, not only to me, but to the rest of them, which I didn't name names. But he had to be addressed, because at that time, it's like, okay, either you're going to fix this issue, or I'm going to expose you to the rest of your peers. How do you want to address this? Well, let's bury the hatchet. I said, that is wise decision. From here on, if I see you doing any one of the things that we have privately addressed, then it's going to go further. So let's bury it now and let's end it.
So luckily that you didn't know Kung Fu then, right?
Yeah. So sometimes you really have to not only address it to that person individually, but when you've done it, you have to expose them kind of, politically correct way. That these are the issues and we got to fix it, because we are team players. Yes. Our team is not going to go anywhere if we don't fix internal issues.
Sure. And it's important to address it with them directly first. That was my point when I was talking, when I first started conversing on this topic, is to make sure that I always make sure I go to the person who I perceive or feel they have beef with me. I'm like, hey, what's going on? What's wrong? Hey, let's converse here. We're adults. Let's talk about it. Right. And that's all it takes sometimes. And I've always had the experience where, and that's his power. That's always his absolute. I would say 99.9% of the time, when I address it to the person, they would just fall in line.
Look
They
at
would
you, you're
become a lot
tall,
better.
big, strong. Look at me. You know, they could probably put me in a trunk and dump me somewhere and nobody would notice.
Okay, maybe so. All right, cool.
That was in the deep south too, so.
All right, so let's moving on. Now let's go to number 2. Our second one that we're going to talk about today is that leaders are
Team builders.
team builders. We're team builders. What do you want to say about team builders?
He's still recovering from
He's
the
like, I
last
don't know.
comment.
So I'll start there. Team builders. So team builders. We are. Some leaders, some managers may not have direct reports, or they may have the manager title, like QC manager. They might not have direct reports. However, if we do have subordinates, it is imperative for us to understand that we are to build. I say it like this, and I say it very strongly. We are responsible for and should be held accountable for developing high value team members, high performing team members, meaning that we train them, we coach them, we guide them, we utilize their skills and the right roles and responsibilities, understanding their duties. They are separated from the other cohorts or their other peers and colleagues, but we work together. So building a team is not an easy thing. It does take the leader understanding everybody, not from just a hard skill standpoint, but also from a soft skill standpoint, and how we can utilize those, to leverage those, and put it like that, we can leverage those to influence the people, our peers around us, but not only that, but also create an environment where it is highly productive, innovative, creativity can flow, all that information that comes through when building a team. Again, it's not easy. It does take time. This is not an overnight opportunity for leaders, especially if you acquired a group and you have that, hey, here's the new guy, here's the new leader. But if you had an opportunity to handpick your people, you can do that a bit faster. That has been my experience. I've inherited a team at one point. It was a bit more difficult. Then I've also handpicked my team, and it was easier. I didn't have to have that trust factor that needed to be developed first there, right? That camaraderie, that everything else that goes along with them trusting you as leader, instilling confidence, being confident, everything else. So those experiences for me are vastly different. However, we're still responsible for creating and building high-performing team members. What do you say about that?
You said it.
No, I agree, and I want to say that this is a higher level leadership thing. Most people, in my experience, don't even try.
Sure.
If they're even aware of it, quite honestly, a lot of people have a title and they rule or lead by the authority given to them in that title. Okay, so being able to develop a high functioning team, that's a higher level leader.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
For a number of reasons. Some people are afraid that they're going to train somebody that could take their job, or
Exactly.
all those types of things.
Yes.
You got all those types of things going
yes.
on, or they want to make sure that they're above everybody else. You know, that type of stuff. But with that being said, I think it is critically important for our success as leaders and managers. If you are managing people who are performing higher, then overall you all are going to perform better.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like you'll train one person and they'll pass you necessarily. You shouldn't be worried about that. So it is incumbent upon us to do that. And I think it's two ways, right? If you do get to handpick your team, right? You have the opportunity to hire the proper people.
Yep.
That's important. You want to invest time in doing that.
Yes.
But then on the flip side, when you have people there, investing time in them to teach them skills. Like you said, soft skills and hard skills. And a lot of times, it's the soft skills that get neglected. Typically, for you to even get the role, you got to have a certain level of hard skills, so to speak.
Yes.
You got to have a certain level of qualification to even get the job. But when you go beyond that, it is what's considered a soft skills. Which we need another term for that, because I don't think it's really soft most of the time. But the soft skills piece, and that's where that development, that's where the critical thing, the critical pieces to being average versus having high levels of success come in.
Sure.
So there's what I've experienced. There are 3 different dynamics of team builders. The first one, of course, is when you come from the outside and you acquire a team. The second one is that you are within the organization and you get promoted and they give you a team. The third one is that you get promoted over the peers that you had. Now you are their boss. three different dynamics, and all three of them have different challenges. From the outside, like you said, that is one of the easier ones, because hey, you've got your own skill set that you're bringing in, and now you've got a team that's okay, teach me, tell me what you bring in, what you got. And then the ones that you got promoted from within and acquired a team which wasn't the one that you grew up with, not your herd. That too is like, okay, this guy got promoted, he must have some skills that we don't. But the toughest one is the one that you got promoted, and now you're overseeing the same peers. You're their boss now. And now you got to take that team and build it. First, you got to show them and prove to them, hey, I'm not your enemy. I got promoted not because I was the golden boy or golden girl, because I do have certain skills that I can learn from you and you can learn from me. So that is the toughest one. And building that team, it does take, like you said, certain skill sets, soft skill sets definitely, and go from there.
Yeah, I was classifying the inherit as two-pronged approach. One, you come from the outside, you get this new team, and you're with your peers and you become their boss. To me, that's still both inherit, but yeah, I definitely, but two different dynamics, absolutely. Well, I'm talking about that one, inheriting. Two different dynamics, yes, there for sure. And two massively different conversations, or three to Yasmin's standpoint. And to what you were saying too, building a team that's why we have basic, intermediate, and advanced leadership skill sets and courses. That one's in the advanced. Because by the time some of the personal aspects of, like you were talking about, hey, I'm going to build this person, they're going to surpass me, all that's out of the way. Good leaders know that if somebody gets promoted and it's a unilateral position or whatever it may be, it's because you did a good job training that person.
That's right.
So you have a different mindset there, and by the time you start developing a high-performing team, you need to have that mindset that it's okay if this person becomes a boss or leave my team and they become a boss somewhere else. And so it should be thought that way, and then everything else can flourish. So that's a good point there.
I want to add something else I don't want us to forget about. The team building also can be as simple as encouragement. Helping your team members in that way.
Sure.
Make sure you're mindful, you're respectful of them. You don't come down on them when they make a mistake and those types of things, because that's one of the quickest ways you can also destroy a team, is being that type of leader. So that's also a part of that. Not necessarily, it might not even be any skills, but you just encourage them.
Which segues into number 3, is that leaders are supposed to be motivators. So we are supposed to be encouraging our team. We are supposed to be building them up, lifting them up. We should be offering words of encouragement that can further drive them to be more productive, more creative, more free-flowing, more fluid, more influential within the organization. That is what we do as leaders. And sometimes we don't feel like motivating. We may come in from the outside, and there may be something that we're going through as a leader, but we have to be able to compartmentalize, switch that off, and make sure that our team is taken care of first. Yes, then you can make sure that you're taken care of. We should be operating, and we call the 5 levels of thinking, the self-centered mindset. Got to take care of you so you can be a better leader, but at the same time, you also have to make sure that the team is motivated, keep up team morale, and make sure that we have that camaraderie within the organization as well. What do you say about that one?
I was always told, first of all, one of my mentors, my bosses, he always said, when you come to work, you leave your personal baggage at the door. And that's it. That when you come in, you put on this mask, you are on stage. You always, as a leader, you're always on stage, and you have to put your best foot forward. And there are times that you might have a team that says, we don't need motivation, or we're self-motivated, but we've seen time and again.
That's crazy, it's BS.
I know, exactly. But time and again, we've seen even a pat on the back, hey, good job, that makes the person feel so good.
Yes, it does.
So don't ever stop motivating your team, but at the same time, make sure that you are self-motivated first of all, and you leave your baggage before you enter the doors of your office or the organization.
Yeah. What do you say about
I think the best way to motivate is being the example. Right? If you think about parenting, kids typically do what you do, not what you say. And I know as a coach, I've coached kids for many years, and I've gotten on parents before. They'll want to get on little Johnny because of his habits, or he's not performing well, and I'll talk to their parent and say, look, I know that little Johnny is doing what he sees at home. So don't ask little Johnny to do something
Step
that
on
you're
some
not
toes
willing to
there.
do, right? And really the context of that is, let me coach.
Yeah.
All right, you be the parent. But if you want to step in, I'm gonna let you know. I'm gonna call it how I see it. And
yes,
years of
yes.
experience has taught me that.
Sure.
The parents that are very disciplined and work hard, so are the kids. I don't have no problems with them. The parents that don't do it, but they expect to live vicariously through little Johnny, they're the ones that I have the hardest time with, because I'm fighting the example that they have at home.
Yeah.
So with that being said, I think it's the same in the workplace, right? It's not always about being the rah-rah cheerleader, right? Be an example. You come in with a great attitude.
Yeah.
You have a great work ethic. That we talk about energetic. We talk about the energy that you can transfer and that people can feel. If you come in excited, you're positive, you've worked on yourself, so you're the best version of you, then that automatically is going to motivate your team.
Yeah.
You don't have to go tell them, rah, rah, come on, I need you guys to get motivated.
Yeah, and you're standing on the by the trenches. You sometimes have to roll up your sleeves and be in the trenches
Sometimes
to
that's a part
motivate
of it.
people.
Yeah, sometimes that's a part of it.
Yeah.
So that example, I think, it could be the most powerful, most impactful way to motivate. Doing what you expect others to do versus talking about what you want them to do and then doing something
and you
else.
don't do it. Absolutely.
That goes a long way. It's very, very powerful. We are supposed to be leaders. We're supposed to be team players. We're supposed to be team builders, and we are supposed to be team or motivators, I should say, motivating our team, and even stretching outside the box or looking outside the box. Walking, coloring outside the lines, motivating other teams as well when it comes to you being around them, just to make sure that everyone's on the same page. So that is well said. Thank you very much, folks, for attending.
Yes.
Stay tuned for part 3. We're going to talk about 3 more roles of what you should be as a leader.
Actually, we have 6 more.
Yes, we have 6 more. Yes.
We'll be back with 3 more.
That's what I was saying. All right. All right, folks. Thank you. Talk to you later. Bye.